All right, I want to welcome today. We got Artur here. And Artur, so that I don't mispronounce your name, which I have done about 3 or 4 times before we press record, how about I throw it over to you so you can give a little bit of an introduction of who you are, where you're from, and what you do with Google Ads.
Yeah, so I'm Artur. It's a hard name to pronounce, so don't worry about it. It's all good. I was actually born in Russia and then came over to the US, and so that's a little bit of why people ask because of my name. I've been running Google Ads and Meta Ads and LinkedIn Ads for about 10 or so years, and so I've been working recently with a lot of different agencies, consulting. I've pretty much become the guy that people call when stuff is just not working. And so it's been a whole lot of fun to just kind of dig in and help people solve real business problems. So
The reason I wanted to get you on actually came from a discussion of a LinkedIn post that I put up about this whole concept of advanced strategies and also sort of basic foundational Google Ads strategies. And we had a little bit of a back and forth. So I thought, you know what, this is such a big and important discussion. Funnily enough, I've seen that it's been a real big theme, especially in my LinkedIn circle. So I wanted to give it, I guess, some more space to really talk it through. So let's start with the first discussion point. And just what I want to talk about is for you, I mean, what do you see the difference between an advanced strategy and a basic Google Ads strategy?
yeah, so when I think about advanced strategies and the difference between that and kind of more basic strategies is you're kind of going deeper into what Google Ads can offer and what you can do with all of these different types of campaigns. Now, a lot of people think about search and shopping and YouTube as kind of siloed. But when you have all of these campaigns running together in an ad account, they're going to be working together to either achieve your goals or not,
Yeah.
depending on how it's set up. And so, yep.
So when you say, like, do you have some examples of this is an advanced strategy that you would use?
Yep. Yep. So I think first to back up, when it comes to advanced strategies, it's not like you should take one advanced strategy and apply it to every single situation and circumstance. So the advanced strategies and things that I think about comes out of a real kind of issue that I'm seeing either within an ad account or within a business. Now, obviously, if there's a business problem, that has to get solved.
Yeah.
But when there's issues of it, recently I had an issue in December after Black Friday for an e-commerce brand where they had competitors showing up with discounts, which was violating MAP, so minimum advertised price. And what ended up happening is that we were just getting killed. We were following the MAP policies, the business was, but they were getting killed because they were going to all the competitors, even though they weren't, following MAP. And so they reached out to the manufacturer. Manufacturer for 3 months was saying they were going to work through it. They didn't. And so what I ended up doing was if you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen.
Hello there, and I hope you're enjoying my latest interview. I just wanted to quickly let you know that all of these interviews are sponsored by my paid Google Ads community, which is called the Google Ads Mastery Community. I set this community up for one clear purpose, and that is so that I can provide people with direct Google Ads support, and we do this in three main ways. Firstly, we run weekly live calls, and these are live calls that are run in all different time zones so that we can get the support to you. And it's where you can actually ask myself and also highly skilled members of my Define Digital Academy team direct questions about your Google Ads campaigns. We then also run monthly masterclasses, and these are in-depth teachings for what you need for success with Google Ads. And they don't only cover things inside of the Google Ads dashboard, we also cover a specific training around things like offline conversions and how to increase the performance of your landing pages. All the important things that you need for true success with Google Ads. And above all else, we've got our Google Ads community feed, and this is where you can join well over 300 other like-minded professionals like you. And we've got Google Ads specialists, agency owners, and also direct business owners who are there supporting and helping each other with how to see the best success with Google Ads throughout the year. And the best thing about this community is that it's all at a really low price because you can get full access for less than the price of a cup of coffee every day. And that's why I set up this community, is so that you can get tailored Google Ads support for a very low price. Right now, we're going to get right back into the interview, but if you'd like to find out more information about how you could join and plus also get a lifetime discount to join my Google Ads Mastery community, just follow the link in the description below.
I basically developed a strategy where I leveraged multiple standard shopping campaigns with the same product. And so what I ended up doing is setting all of these, product one, all of the high sellers, product two, product three, setting 4 different centered shopping campaigns, 2 ROAS of about 40%, and then set up different variants within Shopify. And what I ended up doing was basically taking control of the first page of Google Shopping. And so that kicked out all of my competitors so that when people would go, most people are not swiping. They're just seeing what's on the page and they're going to go and click and make a decision. So I basically dominated the first page of Google Shopping, and that resulted in tremendous results. So we went from December 2nd to December 7th, and we're just not doing well, 8,000, and then increased to 34,000. And so that was a strategy that I just thought of and just kind of deployed, and ended up seeing massive results, and then started to use that in certain other accounts and situations and saw the same lift. And so that would be what I would call a more advanced strategy. I've had people that I've coached that have gone and done this and seen success with it. And then I've had other people who've tried it and, they reach out to me afterwards and they wonder, why did it not work for them? And we kind of go through all these situations and think about, well, what was the business circumstance? What are you selling? All that kind of stuff. And there was other fundamental issues that were really the issue that needed to get solved before deploying something as advanced like this. So that's just kind of an example of a fun advanced strategy.
And that's a good example. And just to clarify on that, so essentially what you're doing there is that you're separating out individual products or product categories into tighter shopping campaigns. Is that correct?
Specific products. So I had about 6-7 products, and then basically duplicated them so they were different variants. So multiple variants per product. Does that make sense? Okay. And we did about 6. Yep.
So multiple variants per product, so that whenever you're on search on that product category, rather than just taking one position, you're taking potentially 2 or 3 or 4 different positions.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. No, that's a great strategy. I guess probably what I thought would be the case from when we spoke on LinkedIn to when we came here is actually, because we were sort of saying, just for people who didn't see the post, I was saying that you don't need advanced strategies. You were saying sometimes people need to go deeper. For me, on my view, and this is my view about advanced strategies, is that for me, advanced strategies are purely stacking up the foundational Google Ads principles on top of each other to make it work for the individual business. And I guess probably my thing about advanced strategies is I really hate it when people go out and go, this is going to be a one-size-fits-all for every campaign. I've discovered the hack to Google Ads. I don't think that's you either. I think you disagree with that as well.
Yep.
So for me, when it comes to an advanced strategy, what I'm really looking at is looking at the core issue of what is the business's issue. You've been doing it for Google Ads for 10 years. I've been in Google Ads since 2010. I would say that every single person who's reached out to me comes in with one of these 2 issues. Their campaign's not converting or they can't scale. I don't know if you've had any other difference, but basically it's those 2 issues. And for me, when it comes down to those, and also too, generally when they can't scale, it's because they can't convert to what the level should be. So for me, what I'm really big on is I have, like with what you just rolled out there, I would say that that's more the applying of this is the issue. And because of my knowledge with Google Ads, this is how I can solve it. And I think that's what I'm sort of being letting people really going on is rather than looking for an individual strategy, if you focus on understanding not only the core foundations that drive success in Google Ads, but how each campaign works, what your options are, you can then roll out a strategy like you did expertly for an individual business. And so I think we actually now probably, that's what I was sort of saying, that's why I wanted to flesh this out, because I don't think we're polar opposites. I actually think we're pretty much talking the same page. We just threw some different language around it.
Oh, yeah. And, it's funny when I went back to the post, like we definitely have different angles about it. But I think fundamentally as I've been reflecting on it, the problem is people are going to Reddit and to YouTube and LinkedIn for the next strategy when they don't understand the foundations of how Google Ads works. And so they're looking for an advanced strategy to solve real foundational issues and problems when it's just not going to. when you would
No.
actually look at your account and look at, the conversion rate is just really low. Is there an issue with the landing page?
Yeah.
Recently went into an account where the repeat rate is 3. So basically the algorithm is looking poor and poor and poorer on the conversion tracking, and the smart bidding strategies are working less hard because it's getting 3 conversions, even though it's only getting 1. It's
Yeah.
counting 3. So
Yeah.
you have to have the foundations right and check all of that first before you can deploy something more advanced. And I think that's the problem, is folks are just trying to, okay, this thing is going to solve it. This
Yeah.
is the
No.
thing. And it's like, no, there's all of these other things that need to get fixed before you even start thinking about this advanced strategy. And so I think, like you've said, 80% of the time, and I totally agree with you, 80% of the time, these simple, basic foundations, just structure, getting that right is going to get you a far way. And then after that, you kind of get creative based off of what the business is trying to actually achieve, and basically being able to achieve that. So I don't think you and I are in different courts when it comes to it at all.
No. And where that post actually came from as well is because it actually came from, I put together an updated course last year, and someone said, it's just not advanced enough. And I think what they were looking for is they're looking for like an easy process, whereas that course is 12 and a half, 14 hours, and it basically lowers down it goes through everything. And if they apply the knowledge, they could put together a strategy, like, because we go through the different things that you can do in Merchant Center. We go through how shopping campaigns work, how they work. And for me, that's where it really comes down to, isn't it? It's foolish to go after, like you said before, it's foolish to go onto YouTube, Reddit, or wherever and try to find an advanced strategy, because if they don't have the context for the business, it's not going to work. Whereas if you focus on understanding, I think for any Google Ads professional being serious about wanting to do this long term, the foundations they need to understand is they need to understand firstly how each Google Ads campaign works and what the best use of each campaign is. For that, I even look to the launch documents for Google Ads, not the Google Rep, because perfect example, Performance Max. The story has changed to meet a sales narrative, not actually what the launch did. The understanding the metrics, and when I say people, I think many Google Ads professionals would know click-through ratio, they know search impression share, they know conversion rates, but they haven't taken the time to put those metrics together to understand when I'm seeing these metrics, that's what I need to optimize. And that's what I really look at, and that's what I'm really big on.
Well, right. And I think when you look at Google Ads, just as a professional, you kind of get in there, how to kind of start a campaign, and Google has made that more easy now than ever. Anyone can start a campaign. And so that's the easy part, but being able to know which campaign for the right situation, for the right business, based off of the search volume here, knowing if a business should even go to Google search. There's several businesses that want to go to Google search, but the average, monthly search is like 100. It's like, hey, you have to work on generating demand before you start capturing it. And, I think there's a lot of kind of foundational pieces that need to be in place. And there's one thing to be able to touch a Google Ads account. There's a whole nother thing when you can actually go in it, diagnose, be able to say, okay, these are the things that you need to do in order to optimize it, and then move from there. I don't know. I think about like mastering Google Ads, like that, the person who ended up saying, it was too foundational, or it wasn't as advanced enough. Has that person been able to kind of put all those pieces together? I have no idea. But I think also those foundations, they're boring. No one wants to go through that. But that's what it takes. It's the boring, consistent understanding how this thing impacts this thing. And that's not something that necessarily is explained out there. You have to kind of put a lot of pieces together in order to understand how this metric impacts that metric. And so I think, it's pretty interesting.
I also think there's going to be, because people, I'm sure you get this question all the time, people asking, are you worried about your job? You're worried about your business, given with all of the growing AI coming into to Google Ads, and not only Google Ads, the whole digital marketing landscape. I'm not concerned, because I actually think there's going to be a big divergent. And what the divergent is going to be, is the people who actually truly understand how Google Ads works and how to put together actually become more valuable. The ones that haven't taken that time and haven't taken the effort to actually really learn and understand things, they are at a risk of losing their job. So that's why my recommendation is to really understand it. And the way that I explain it to people is this, is that we know with these language models, AI, automated, whatever term you want to put on it, is they work best when you're feeding in the right data and giving it the right structure. And the biggest problem I see in Google Ads at the moment now is people starting off with campaigns like Performance Max, like Demand Gen. Sometimes I would start with Demand Gen in a very, very rare circumstance if they don't have high intent traffic. But starting off with these campaigns without feeding any data in from their own accounting. And it's kind of like the example I give is if you go to ChatGPT and say, can you give me an employment contract? You'll just get a general employment contract. If you then give them like your name, your company address, the individual particulars of what you need, the legal ramifications of your employment country, where you're employing them from, you're going to get a lot more of a personalized response because you've given it more data. And for me, that's how Google Ads works. If you're not feeding in data, that's why I think I know campaigns like what I call primary campaigns, you alluded to them before, search and shopping, I think they're even more important now than what they were 5 years ago, because that's, if you're not feeding in that conversion data, you're always going to run into problems.
And I mean, there's been that whole push to, not feeding Google conversion data. And I mean, I've done a lot of that in a lot of my accounts. I've seen tremendous success. And I've seen a lot of people fall on their face and it not work for them. And it's because of the core principle of just not pure, being able to understand how this works. When you actually need to leverage conversion tracking, what types of bidding strategies are absolutely necessary in having conversion tracking in place. So there's foundations and fundamentals like that. But what I've never seen fail when it comes to Google Ads, as long as the product and service is good, is if the search term is relevant and high intent, it's always going to convert. And I think the basic principle of what Google's trying to do right now is take control from us in that we're not able to focus our keywords and search terms specifically to what we're actually trying to go for. And so that's where I think a lot of people are struggling. And, they're trying to leverage broad match with maximize clicks. It's like, you're just handing Google a bunch of money if you're using those two things together. And so I think people just need to stop looking at videos, our videos, and taking it as gospel and saying that's the way, like learn the foundations, understand the conversion data. Like you said, being able to pipe that back into Google Ads in the right way and get all that data back in there is going to be extremely powerful if done right. Now, I've had a situation where there's a new client where their conversion tracking super solid, everything's in the right place, but what ended up happening is they continued to decrease spend month after month because they were getting a lower return on investment. Their search impression share is 10%. There's something wrong, right? I go in there, it takes about 5 minutes, and I'm like, hey, could you just export a report to me? Tell me how much of this is new versus returning customers. I said, oh, it's 80% returning. I said, that's the problem. The search has basically boxed itself into getting these people to come back instead of finding new people. And it's because you've set your conversion tracking to every instead of one. It's like a foundational, fundamental thing that people skip over because it's the boring, it's not the fun part of Google Ads. And so again, that's a business thing, that's a business kind of like understanding a business and being able to say, okay, how can we get Google Ads to work for that business? And so I think that's not an advanced strategy at all. That's very fundamental. And a lot of these people are chasing that hack or this crazy strategy or the strategy that I just showed you to solve a fundamental problem that is within their ad account.
And I think that's what we're sort of making loud and clear is that rather than going and looking for an advanced strategy that someone is spruiking off, actually focusing your time on learning how Google Ads works, focusing your time and learning how each of the individual campaigns work. Now, I remember when I first started Google Ads back in 2010 when we had search and shopping and that was it. Didn't even have, shopping was only just coming in. I think the beauty of that is that because there wasn't as many YouTube videos around then, it forced me to look at the data, and it forced me to actually go in and really, really have a look at, what's happening. And the other beauty of that is that, I'm a really big believer in too, is that I think any Google Ads professional that wants to spend this long term is that they should be setting up some sort of side business where they are paying for their own marketing money, because it puts Google Ads management in a whole new light, because you then really, really start to understand. So I'm not as dogmatic about certain things, like, it used to be I'm pro Google, I'm pro Meta, or whatever the platform is. But for me, I'm really looking at, they all play their part. They're all different in between each other. The big thing is that whatever's happening inside of Google Ads in terms of conversion metrics, it's important, but it's not as important as what's happening in the profit and loss statement and what's happening at that bottom line revenue line. And I think I've seen some people just get so caught up on their conversion metrics in Google Ads isn't matching what's happening in their Shopify account or what's happening in their HubSpot or whatever CRM they're using. And I go, we don't need it to match. All we need to know is, are we confident in the trend line? So if we increase spending Google Ads by 10%, are we seeing a 10% or more increase in business? And that's really the only trend line. Once you're happy with that, you can start going, right, if we put more money into Google Ads, what happens to the business? If we turn off some campaigns, do we see a drop? Do we see an increase? And that's kind of the thing that I've always looked at.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely right. Like, I've seen that even running Meta and Google together and LinkedIn, when you add multi-channels together, like every company is facing attribution issues. Where did it come from? And when you not only just have that in Google, but you have that in multi-channels, it's even more complex. And so I think there's also a bigger problem too now with Performance Max and Advantage Plus on Meta. I know this is Google only channel, but you have to kind of watch out for these things and understand not only how Google works and all of these different campaign types, but if you're running other channels, how they actually interact and, pretty much go after the same audience. And like you said, bottom line, you're never going to get fired as a Google Ads specialist for growing a business. Like a bank account. You're going to get fired because, you're saying that things are just absolutely crushing it within Google Ads, and yet the revenue line is just continuing to decline. And so I think it's important to kind of help. We all need to kind of understand. I think we almost all need to get back to business foundations. And like you said, spending your own money on marketing. I do that. I have a couple side things where I do that because I'm testing not in client accounts, because guess what? That's risky. I'm testing it on my own accounts first and then testing out in other accounts as well. So it's one of those things, when you're the one that's going to feel the pain of something working or not, you definitely have a bigger appreciation, but there's also an emotional piece to it when you're spending money, and you're able to be put in the place of the business owner. Hey, things are not good. I'm losing money. Like, this doesn't make sense. And so I think that's a good practice for all of us to do that.
Yeah. Hey, I want to finish on this one, and then we'll wrap it up. And my biggest thing about creating a business, an advanced business strategy, it really actually comes back to, before we even jump into Google Ads, is actually learning to ask the right questions of your new client. So I'd like to spend some time just to ask you, do you have, 3 or 4 standard questions that you ask a new client or an existing client to really help formulate the strategy that you need to put out for this business?
Typically, I ask, what is their goal? What are they looking to achieve? Number one, what have they been dealing with when it comes to just like they've been trying, but they can't achieve that? So what kind of roadblocks have they had? And then just kind of walking through specific products or services that are very specific to their niche, their kind of area, because I think that a lot of people kind of ignore foundational things that there's just information that these business owners have. Like, they're passionate about it. They dreamed about it. They built this business, and they have a better understanding of the customer and the area or whatever it may be than we do. And so if we can apply that into Google Ads or into some sort of marketing channel and really speak directly, I think that's going to be really impactful. So just kind of talking through those things, and then just kind of what's your new versus returning kind of rate, looking at, kind of those other metrics as well. But those are primarily the kind of initial things that I ask. What about you?
Yeah, I like that one. The big thing that I really like to frame it as is, I like to frame it as, you employ me, I'm the expert on Google Ads, but you're the expert on your business. And for success, I've got to get some of your knowledge about your business. I've got to understand how this works. So that's what I really drill down into their products or their services. I really drill down into I need to understand not only their profit margins, but I need to understand the drivers of their business. And let me give you an example. We had a client, it was an e-commerce brand. It was selling like home equipment, but the big driver of their revenue business wasn't the initial purchase, it was the ongoing maintenance. So the previous agency had always worked on trying to get their initial sale as high as possible. I said, no. What we need to focus on is, because the money in your business is your ongoing maintenance. So as long as we're running these units at cost price, I think it was about 200 ROAS we went at, so it wasn't cost price. But as long as we did it there, that's building the business, because as many as once you sell that unit, you know that you've got, I think it was like a 3-year maintenance plan, which was where the real money in the business was. But it didn't become clear until I really dove down. I came in at about, we were in the meeting for about a good 45 minutes before that part of the puzzle came out. So that's what I really drive down, is I really want to find out what is the revenue driver in the business, because that's how we're going to see success with the business.
That's totally like correct. I mean, I'm just thinking about like my trash can. It moves up and down, like it opens up. And the funny thing is, I am like thinking, because I'm in this space, I'm like, this trash can, they probably don't make any money on the trash can, but the bags are custom fit. You have, a 10-year lifespan of that customer paying, and it drives me crazy. My wife keeps buying this. I'm like, why can't we get, the cheaper bag or whatever? But that's the same thing for every business. And, oftentimes people are just so focused within Google Ads or Meta Ads, and they're just like, oh, I need to make this look better. But sometimes making that look worse is actually going to make the business, revenue drive up. And you have to know when and how to kind of look at those things. And getting a 200 ROAS in your example is actually good for the business, because it leads to a 10,000% ROAS down the road, real best business revenue. So I think that's a great example.
Hey, it's been absolutely great having you on the channel. Just for everyone watching, if you go down into the description, I've put where you can get in contact with Artur. So thanks, mate. And look forward to staying in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Aaron.
My pleasure.